is your host, Cain Stevens. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cain Stevens Super Show. I'm your host with the most, once again, Cain Stevens. And you guessed it, folks, I've got another super guest on my hands. This guy has a podcast of his own. He's one half of the Kenyatta and Jack Save the World podcast. He is he's a husband of 29 years, father of 3. He's a dog dad of 2. I like dog dads. I'm a dog dad myself. He's just got a lot to talk about. We kind of connected through different sites, and we just kind of got to talking. I thought this guy would be a great guest. So without further ado, let's bring on Jack Robertson, everybody. We're going to go ahead and give him a round of applause here. Jack, how are you?
I'm all right. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. I think myself and my listeners will dig the background you have behind you there. For those living under a rock or extremely just kind of low on the musical knowledge, I mean, what do you have behind you there?
That would be the album cover to the Pink Floyd album Animals.
Yes,
where we get introduced to the lovely flying pig.
Yeah. So what's your favorite song on I know that's a hard thing to ask, but when you go to this go-to album, what's the song that gets you on this album?
Dogs. I love Dogs.
Yeah.
That's one of Dave Gilmour's criminally underrated vocal performances.
Absolutely.
Like Dogs.
Do you like Gilmour's solo stuff too? He's got some great stuff, man.
You know what? I do. And over the last 6 months, I have really gone deep into the Division Bell and Momentary Lapse of Reason. And they are so much better than I actually thought, especially the Division Bell, because that is all about how upset he was with Roger Waters leaving the band.
Right. It's perfect. Yeah. I recently went down a deep dive of my own where I started like diving into all this and Gilmour's work, outside of Pink Floyd. And it was just like, man, it's just, this guy really was the legit deal, wasn't he? Like, I mean, the whole band was, but he's the guy.
Oh, yeah. The other cool thing about Gilmour that people don't recognize is he always made sure that Syd Barrett got all of his royalties.
Yeah.
Syd wouldn't have known if he did or not, and he probably could have screwed him over, and he never did that. And he re-releases Syd's stuff so his family can get royalties, which is cool.
And poor Syd Barrett too, man. What a talent, what an amazing musician, man. He just had a lot of problems, a lot of things going on. And it's really kind of one of the saddest stories in rock, if you ask me. He's got to be up there.
Yeah. There's a part of me that has wondered, would he have been better off if he would have had the same fate that like Morrison or Joplin or Hendrix had? Not that I wanted him to die. I'm just saying that versus 40 years or 35 years of severe mental issues.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we could probably talk about Pink Floyd forever. I'm so glad I found another fan. My dad got me into it, like a lot of kids. They have cool dads, and I had a cool dad who got me into it. And so it's always great to talk to people who are big fans. I just hope kids keep, like my kids, I hope they gravitate to it. I know I turned them on the Dark Side of the Moon, like a lot of people have, and hopefully that's just like a springboard to them really getting into super cool music with great guitar solos, and it just the whole works, right?
Yeah, real quick before we phase out of the Floyd.
Yeah.
My kids love Pink Floyd, but their least favorite is The Wall, because anytime we would travel on a long distance trip, I would put in my double CD of The Wall and I would perform the whole thing, every voice, every song, all of that. And so I may have ruined it for him, because I do not sound like Dave Gilmour or Roger Waters.
Yeah, man. Well, that's all right. Most dads don't. For my dad, it was the Eagles. He was huge into the Eagles. So when we would go on a trip, it'd be like he'd pop in the Hell Freezes Over live album or something. And it was like, man, like you couldn't tell that they all hated each other's guts when they got on stage like that.
Yeah, yeah. My dad was George Jones and Willie Nelson.
Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So let's talk about it if you're willing to. It says in your bio we talked about how you have a daughter, who was
Yes.
in a terrible fire, and kind of a traumatic,
Yes.
obviously traumatic event for the family, for her. And you started a foundation, in which case you're wearing the shirt, correct?
Yes. Yes, I
So
am.
let's talk about that a little bit if we could.
Okay, quick backstory. My son was in the Air Force. He was
Mhm.
stationed in Colorado Springs. My youngest daughter went to visit him, fell in love with Colorado Springs, wanted to move up there. My son was like, I own my house. I have a spare bedroom. Why don't you move up here with me? Your cousin already lives here. And so, even though she knew that she was going to be the house mom to two fellas in their 20s and that it was going to mean a lot of her yelling at them to do dishes, she did it. Yeah, she moved out there. And that's sort of how we got to this point. And so, on my wife's birthday of February 2022, I was recording Kenyatta and Jack Save the World. And I can hear my wife talking on the phone in the other room. And I'm like, oh, cool. The kids called her and I don't have to call them and do the dad thing and be like, call your mom. It's her birthday. So I finished recording. I walk out there and, and you've been married as long as I have, you can tell when something is wrong,
Right.
when you walk into the room. And so I walked in, I could tell immediately something's wrong. And she looked at me and she's like, M is in the emergency room. M has severe asthma. She's been hospitalized for it 12 times. In fact, when she was being born, she was having an asthma attack. If you
Wow.
didn't think that was possible, it is.
Hmm.
And so I just thought, oh, well, she had another asthma attack. So I was like, asthma attack? She was like, no, she was in a fire. That was like getting punched by Mike Tyson.
Yeah, for sure.
There's just no other way to say that. And then as a child from the 80s, and then having an imagination, I immediately started picturing some scenario that, wouldn't have happened. So then we're talking. And so what happened was she was making candles, something that she's done. She's a very crafty, artsy person. So she was making candles and she put the scent oil in the
Mhm.
wax and it just burst into flames.
Oh wow.
And so, yeah. And so she thought, this is more like a grease fire than a fire with water. I need to put a lid on this pot and that'll snuff it out. Smart, And so she
Yeah,
does
not a
put the
bad
lids
idea.
on it. Yeah. Fire goes out and she waits about a minute and thinks, I'm just going to go and throw this into the snow because it had snowed that day. Once again, not a bad idea, right?
Right.
And so she picked the pot up, she turned around, and it exploded like a volcano science experiment. The flames just shot up, the lid went up, and it caught her the right sleeve of her hoodie on fire, her right thigh on fire, and then she dropped the pot as one would do. Fortunately, it landed, with the bottom on the floor. She stopped, drop, and rolled, but the porcelain tile and sort of the wax still burning didn't actually put the fire out. Had it just been like cloth, it probably would have.
Right.
So she thought, I have to go dive in the snow. So she got up and ran outside and dove in the snow, which did put the fire out. And as she was about to pass out, her dog Ellie started licking her in the face, which kind of brought her out of it. Um, we joke we're not sure whose emotional support animal, if she's Ellie or if Ellie's is hers.
Right.
But, so she got up and she walks into the house, and as she does that, their cousin had come up because he heard the worst screaming sound he had ever heard in his life. So by the time he gets up there, she comes walking in and all he sees is her clothes had been burned, and then she stands there and he looks at her and all the skin on her hand falls off, and he just sort of froze, which I don't blame him. I would have froze, right?
Yeah, of course. Who wouldn't?
Yeah. But I'm actually kind of glad he did because it pissed Emily off. And so she turned to him, and my nephew's like, I'll never forget this. She turned to him and she's like, well, one of us has to call the fucking fire department. So she walks over to her phone and dials 911 with her left hand, picks it up. She tells him what's going on. And then the operator keeps talking to her. And then she's like, yeah, you're just asking the same questions and I don't want to talk to you anymore. And hangs up on him. She turns to her cousin and she's like, you go stand outside. And when the fire truck gets here, you let them in. And I'm going to stand here and wait for them inside. And so that's what she did. And the firemen, they got there first, and he went up there and he just started screaming, we need ketamine right now. Yeah. So they put the IV in, took her to the ER. Then my wife talked to her for, the hour. Then I talked to her, and a nurse comes in, and my wife hears her say, so when do I get to go home? The nurse is like, honey, we're trying to decide if we're helicoptering you to Denver or you're taking an ambulance. Yeah. You're not going home for a while. Right. That's, the joy of being 22, I guess.
I guess, man, she had a crazy calm to her, didn't she? Considering what she had been through.
Yeah. Well, and I also imagine the ketamine helped, and
the ketamine,
the Dilaudid, and then the fentanyl. They give you a lot of drugs when that happens. Keith Richards.
The pain's probably unimaginable, right? So she's probably in a strange shock and everything too. So it's like a combination of that, adrenaline, and everything, right?
Yeah. She was actually so her thigh was burned worse because she actually had two types of burns. She had the surface burn from the fire, but the hot wax melted down into her skin. So she had two types of burns on her thigh, and it was burned worse than her arm. But she has this giant oval sort of section where all of the nerves died. So her arm hurt worse because she didn't have this, massive dead cells, which is weird. And so that, of course, set my wife and me up for, holy crap, we have to drive from Oklahoma City, Colorado. We got to find somebody to watch the dogs. Got to call in for work. And so my oldest daughter, her mother-in-law gave her aircraft miles, fly miles. And so she flew there that night. And so Friday to when we were able to get there, Em wasn't alone. Her big sister was with her, which was great because she was able to get there, so much faster.
Yeah, for sure.
And I love my dogs, but it is surprisingly difficult to find. It's not surprisingly difficult. It's very difficult to find someone to dog sit for you when one of your dogs is 130-pound Great Dane.
Yeah, that makes it's different than my dogs. I have two like cockapoo, like poodle type dogs, small ones, and it's hard enough to get them. So I can only imagine it'd be like, taking care of a big dopey grown man,
Yeah. Our other dog, she only weighs like 22 pounds, but Higgins more than makes up for it.
Yeah.
So it just took us a minute, and then my wife's mother went with us as well. My wife kind of was like, I need my mom to mom me when I'm not being a mom for her. Yeah. And also my wife's mom is the only grandparent that my kids have left. Both of my parents have passed, and my father-in-law's passed. And so it's my wife's mom and my stepmom. That's sort of the only parents we have. But so my mother-in-law went with us. We drove out there, got there as quick as we could. But they had, after COVID protocols in, so only two people could be in at a time. And it was the same two people for the whole day. You couldn't rotate out. You signed in. Wow. You were the one, you were there all day.
Yeah.
So we kind of rotated people through so each one of us could get an emotional kind of break, because that was tough seeing her in that amount of pain. Right. And skin graft surgery is probably as painful, if not more, than being on fire. Yeah. It's a cheese slicing knife. Yeah. That's how they peel your skin off for a skin graft, is basically with one of those. Oh wow. So they take the old stuff out, they find donor sites, and different parts of your body, the skin is similar, so they take parts from, that kind of match the skin. So like her forearm used to be on her butt,
Mhm.
and um, her surgeon was like, we can get all your donor skin from your right leg, so only your right leg will be scarred going forward. He didn't want her to have her left leg be scarred from donor sites,
Yeah.
which was cool, an odd thing to be happy about.
Right.
Yeah. And so there are just these weird things with skin grafts that I wish I didn't know. When they do the transplant, they can't sew or staple the new skin in. It just has to sit there. So all of your bandages and everything, that they put on, that's what they staple to you. They put it on tight and then they staple that to your skin. Very
Wow.
uncomfortable because it's like 1-inch staples. It's not like, a swing line. You got my stapler type staple. It's a big staple that goes in there because it has to hold everything in place.
Yeah. I'll
And
bet that
so,
my listeners, like myself, have absolutely no idea about any of this. Like, so this is like, if I keep saying, wow, I'm just literally fascinated by what you're saying. Like, I just can't
yeah,
think of a single word other than that. Like, I'm just like blown away. I mean, like, I can't imagine going through that, what your daughter went through. And I can't imagine as a family, seeing your family member going through that pain and everything. It,
it was tough.
it's
It
gotta
was, it was the
be.
hardest thing I've ever gone through,
Yeah.
honestly. My father-in-law was in the ICU with cancer for 45 days before he died, and this was worse than that.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
she just went through just the amount of pain and just seeing her go through that. And there were a couple times where she was just really overwhelmed with stuff, and you couldn't make a sound. Like texting someone on your phone, the sound of your finger hitting your screen was overwhelming her.
Yeah.
So my wife and I just sort of sat there quietly, So that was all we could do to help her. And if I'm laughing, it's because I deal with shit with laughing
Yeah.
and dark humor.
Same here, man.
Um,
I totally understand the laughter. I've been through a couple situations today where I just laughed like a clown when, but I couldn't have
yeah,
been more uncomfortable.
yeah, yeah. And also, as we're getting close to the 2-year burn anniversary, that's what people in the burn survivor community call it, their burn anniversary.
Yeah.
And so I've had time to process it, and I've gone to a therapist because I just needed to. There were just some things that haunted me afterwards. And so, yeah, I mean, it was tough seeing her go through that. But my daughter, she's a fighter, and they expected her to be in the hospital in the burn unit for 30 days. She got out in 14, which is difficult because when you leave the burn unit, you're not done. You have to spend anywhere from 2 months to a year doing wound care every day. And that means you're getting scissors and you're cutting little flakes of skin off, and you're
Yeah.
washing your leg with, a special kind of soap that kind of burns. And it takes it took her 2 hours, and she only had 18% of her body that was burned. So when you see somebody who's like a 70% burn survivor, that was probably hours of wound care a day when they got home doing that. And the wound care hurts so bad. She's the only person I've ever known that has had a prescription for Dilaudid. And so she would take that and then let that kick in and then go and do her wound care. And but she didn't want to stay in the hospital. Her words, I'm not going to let this fire, I'm going to make this fire be my bitch.
There you go.
And so she has, even though she does have a lot of phobias, it was only this past September that she was able to cook on the stove and use the oven. Understandable, that's where her accident happened.
Right.
But other sources of heat hurt her. She can't go near bonfires, terrified of candles. But with time, she'll probably, work through a lot of that stuff. And it'd be weird if she didn't have that. Um, but would I rather her not go through this? Yes. But now I know so much about what the burn survivor community and their families go through. That's what started the Mars mission
Hmm.
thing. Um, my wife and I were talking about how the family members end up sleeping in their cars or going home because hotel expenses get to be too much. Think about what a week in a hotel would cost.
Right.
That's $1,000 in
Yeah, for
some
sure.
cities.
Easily.
In there are only 124 burn centers in the United States. Most people live 6+ hour drive to a burn unit. So if your loved one's in the hospital, you need a hotel.
Yeah. Or you're gonna have to
It's
rent a place, you know what I mean, for like
yeah,
a super low rent place for a short time, right? Well, however long it is. Either way, it's gonna
yeah,
cost you quite a bit.
right, yeah. And so my wife and I one day over dinner, I was like, it'd be cool if there was like a Ronald McDonald House for the families of burn survivors that they could stay in while their person was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got home, we started looking for something like that because we wanted to give to it, and there isn't anything.
Yeah.
And that evolved into, well, what if we could give grants to people to help offset hotel costs? Because to have a Ronald McDonald type house is millions and millions of dollars. I work for the state of Oklahoma. I don't have millions and millions of dollars. I'm lucky to have hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Right.
And so our thought was, if we could start a nonprofit, we could raise money for a couple things, to give grants to offset hotel costs. The one exception, is your person has to be in a burn unit. And the other one is to raise the money to have a Ronald McDonald type house. Because not only for while that person's in there, you go to the doctor for a good week when you get out, once a week for months, and then once a month for a long time. Well, once again, if you live 6 hours away, you're going to need a hotel for, your doctor appointment on Tuesday at 8 a.m. And so our thought was, then they could come have a place to stay the night before their appointment. Don't have to worry about any sort of, hotel expense, anything. You just have a place to stay. And that's how we evolved to that, because we just wanted people to not be alone in the hospital when they're recovering from that. And we didn't want family members to be at home stressing out about their person in the ICU.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's how it came about. And we're also working with hotels to give a discount code. So if we can't give you a grant, at least you can, get your hotel 25% off or whatever. A week of
Either way,
25%
you're
off. Yeah.
helping people. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're giving them the opportunity to be with their loved ones so that they're not alone, and helping them split the cost. I mean, it's a wonderful organization. It's a it's I love not the story of how you got to it. That's tough. I mean, what you
Yeah.
guys went through, but I love that you guys took adversity and you thought to yourself, there's other people that are going through this very thing. What can we do to help them out? Oh, there's nothing. We'll start something here and we'll try it. Like, I mean, that's what I wish everybody would do. It's kind of like one of my best friends growing up, he died of epilepsy, bad epilepsy.
Oh, man.
And there's obviously epilepsy organization and everything like that. So you can go and you can donate to that. But this type of situation that you have, you looked and there was nothing, and you guys made something out of nothing. So I mean, yes, I want to give you, but I mean, it's amazing to talk to people like you. And it's an honor to me to be able to talk to someone like you who's been through this.
No,
I
thanks.
think it's important for listeners because you could go through this. I could go through this. Any of us could go through this, and we could be trying to turn to someone, and now we have somebody. So thank you guys for starting
Yeah.
this
Yeah. Thank you.
organization. Tell us a little bit about how people can donate to the organization or help out.
Well, right now, the easiest thing is to just go to marsmissionfoundation.org.
Okay.
We sort of have it set up as a temporary website because we're waiting for the IRS to approve our 501c3 status.
Yeah.
They can have anywhere from 3 months up to a year.
Okay.
And it's difficult to ask for donations from businesses if they're not going to get the tax write-off.
Right.
I'm not mad at them. I understand completely. So many scammers out there. You have to have that paperwork that says I'm an official, nonprofit.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
we're still waiting for the IRS, and it's so tough because I would have to take off work because it's a 4-hour wait period to contact the IRS for them to look up and be like, yeah, no, you're still in process.
Hmm.
So it's kind of I did that a couple months ago, and
Well,
they're like, yeah,
dealing
we'll
with
get to
any
you when you get it
government
to you.
organization can be so frustrating. Like, dealing with Social Security, dealing with all of that stuff is like
Yeah,
mind numbing. And you wonder to yourself, like, is there anyone even on the other end at times? Like, will you ever talk to anybody? So I can only imagine. I mean, the IRS, unless you're settling up debt with them, I'm sure it is probably hard to get a hold of somebody for some of this stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah, they'll contact you if you owe money.
Yeah, yeah. There, then you all of a sudden there's people everywhere, to talk to.
Yeah, they're not waiting around. So if you go right now, the website, I understand that it's not like super duper professional.
Hmm.
We just sort of felt that we just wanted to, like, when we got the 501c3 status, to then have like the better sort of website to come online and match with it, and we've got printouts and stuff like that we want to sort of do kind of all in one shot.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
but but we still have a tab if you want to donate. It won't be tax write-offable at the moment, but we still have some expenses going into that. We have things that we need to print, you know, just business cards, just stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's expenses and stuff that you have.
Yeah.
And so just stuff like that. So we would love if you wanted to help us out right now. Once again, marsmissionfoundation.org.
Well,
And we tell
hopefully,
the story of
I don't
why it's
have
called
a Joe
Mars.
Rogan reach or anything, but I'm surely going to try with the listeners that I have. I'm hoping that we can uh, touch some people into helping. It's obviously the time of year where people are a little more inclined to want to help for whatever reason. I think people
Mm-hmm.
should help all the time, but I mean, if you're so inclined to do so, it'd be great if they did that for you guys. But
Yeah.
so I think what the listener would want to know, though, I mean, can you tell us how your daughter is now? I mean, how is she doing now? You kind of told us how she's coping with things. How is she physically and everything?
Physically, she's healed. She doesn't have any of the open wounds or anything like that. We were very lucky. All of her grafts took the first time.
Hmm.
Sometimes people have to do them again. And also, if you're interested, you can Google fish skin for burn survivors. They literally take tilapia skin, and while they're growing your skin, they can put that on there. It's wild looking,
Wow.
crazy, but cool at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, um, but she's getting through stuff. She's had a lot of therapy because she obviously had quite the PTSD, and so she's been able to start using the stove again. She had her first round of a laser skin treatment. It's kind of like tattoo removal, but it goes over the the scarred skin, and it breaks up the lower levels. And over time, when you have enough of them, eventually the lower levels of the skin become normal, more normal, and so your skin starts to look better, less scarred. And
Yeah.
the other thing about grafted skin, it doesn't move and it doesn't sweat. So whenever she walks, her old skin is constantly tugging and pulling on her grafted skin. And after about an hour, she just gets exhausted from it. Over time, she'll get, better stamina. But she did not have to do physical therapy for her hand, which she was supposed to, because as soon as they unwrapped it, she started playing her Nintendo Switch, and she did it so much she physical therapied her hand to not needing physical therapy. So that's
There,
good.
there you go. Another use for the Switch, right?
Yeah. And she was a Scottish Highland dancer as a teenager. So
Yeah.
every time she stood with her right leg, she would do one of the dances. And she did that so much she didn't have to go to therapy for her leg, which is cool. So other than getting tired really easy and stuff like that, she's doing as well as can be expected. She overheats easy or gets over cold easy, because her skin doesn't. She has a large area that doesn't do like normal skin does, and you don't realize how that affects you not sweating until you can't do it with thermoregulation issues.
So does she
And
have
then
a lot of noticeable does she is a lot of it covered up, or is a lot of it noticeable like around her hand and stuff? It's probably pretty noticeable. Is that hard for her?
Yes and no. So if she's wearing jeans and a hoodie, you can't tell she has anything wrong with her other than she wears a glove, a
Yeah.
special glove that burn survivors wear,
Mm-hmm.
and compression sleeve, compression glove. She has custom compression for her sleeve for her leg. So if it's cold, you can't tell. But if it's the summertime, it looks like, why does this person have a compression sleeve on one leg? Why is her arm having that? Because it's a couple of years before they really want your skin to have sun on it.
Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
um what bothers her more is when adults stare at her and not kids. If a kid is staring at her and a kid asks what happened, she'll be like, well, this is what happened. And she's cool with the kid because it's curiosity. But adults sometimes will stare, and it can be kind of cruel with the way people do that, and that can bother her. Generally it doesn't. um M is her own person. We always joke that she didn't dance to the beat of a different drummer because she was in a different instrument section entirely.
Right.
And so a lot of stuff like that doesn't bother her. um well, just an example, because I'm an awesome parent. When she was 10, we took her to a Flaming Lips concert. If you don't know who the Flaming Lips are, look them up. Their fan base is unique. And she turned to us and said, I'm finally with my people. So
She finally found her people. That's
yeah,
usually where you find them, is at the certain shows that you go. That's where I found my people. That's what made me want to be a musician and everything. I found
yeah,
them not at a Flaming Lips show, but I could see myself finding them there too.
yeah, yeah. So she's doing as well as can be expected. She's working through stuff, still has lots of therapy to go through. It's
Yeah.
a long journey for any burn survivor. Just real quick, I want to say, have a fire extinguisher in your kitchen.
Hmm.
If you grill all the time, have a fire extinguisher outside by your grill. If you have a 2-story house, every bedroom needs to have an emergency escape ladder. Not one room upstairs, every room. And you also, if you have kids, you need to practice fire alarms. Have your plan in place. Let your kids know where you meet. And when I say practice, get up at 2 a.m. and set the fire alarm off. Because when it happens, you want your kids to be prepared and not freak out.
Yeah.
Modern fabrics burn 5 times as fast as fabrics made in the 70s. So a house today actually can catch fire and burn way faster than a house from the 70s because everything is so much more flammable. So you want to have that plan in place, because you can replace your house, you can't replace your kids.
Absolutely. And that's the most important. Your things are just things. Yes, it would suck if you lost all of your belongings, but at the end of the day, your family is what matters. I'm obviously right. Your animals, your living, the people, the living beings in your house are what matter.
Yeah,
But that is an important part. I mean, before I had my heart issues, I was a career electrician, for 20 years, and we worked a lot with smoke alarms and all those type of systems. And it's very important. I think people don't realize how important it is to check them all the time to make sure, because a lot of times, like when you rent, for example, the landlord will just put in the battery special. They don't even bother to hardwire them. They're not linked
yeah,
together. So you're just getting batteries, and you rarely check them. At the very least, just please check your smoke alarms. I mean, just check them. I mean, monthly if you have to. You could do it weekly. Some people have a regime of doing it every other week, whatever. But just check them. It's extremely
yeah,
important because at the end of the day, that is going to alert you. But yes, having a plan, like you said, is crucial for your family. I mean, I don't even think that me and my family have a proper plan, but we should. Like, you can't just expect that your kids are gonna throw a chair through their window and go out safely and then it's all going to be okay. Like, who knows how they're going to react, right?
yeah. And repetition for kids is what helps them. And you want your kid to have a cool head in that situation and not be scared and freak out. Even if they know, I got to open the window, this is how this ladder works, I got to climb down the ladder. Yeah, is your kid going to be happy when you set the alarm off at 2 a.m.? No.
No.
They are not.
They're not going to be happy. Well, if it's my kid, they seem to be up all hours of the night. For my kids have really strange patterns. I have a son who also sleepwalks, and which is can be really strange too, because he sleepwalks intensely. Like he can do all sorts of. I'm always terrified he's going to go outside when
Yeah, I could
nobody's
see
paying
why.
attention. I mean, he does, like, you would think he was functioning when you witness it, but then he's like, there's no response to what you're doing or anything. Like he has no idea that he's doing it. It's pretty
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah, no, that sleepwalking is weird. When I was in junior high, I had a friend that sleepwalked, and he would always walk down the stairs, walk to the backyard, pee on the window, and then walk back up and go to bed.
Yeah.
It was the weirdest thing. It was the same spot every time, and his mom was like, "Oh God, not again."
Not again. At least it was in the closet, right?
Yeah.
I've known people who have peed in the closet. Well, I hate to do this to us. Well, I always say I hate to, but I can't hate it. We're gonna have to take a pause here for some of my sponsors. To mention a couple right now. As of right now, I have Sly Ink Tattoo here in Lincoln, Nebraska. If you end up in the Lincoln area, Bryce is the best in the business, and there's really no one better. I mean, I've been tattooed by him many times. Also, I have Roots Music Shop. If you need anything, guitars, any of that stuff done, please get that from Ryan. Roots Music, the Elegant Sasquatch. We'll be running the ad here just in a second.
Hey there, grooming gurus. We've got something wild for you today.
That's right, folks. Get ready to tame the untamed with products that redefine the beard game. Introducing the Elegant Sasquatch Grooming Company.
Elegant Sasquatch, that sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it?
Well, grooming should be an adventure, my friend, and with these products, you'll embark on a journey to the grooming wilderness.
So, what makes the Elegant Sasquatch so unique?
It's all about taking your beard from beastly to beautifully wild. Picture this, you wake up and your beard looks like it just got back from a spa day. That's the magic of their high-end beard balms.
Spa day for the beard? Sign me up. And let's not forget their beard butters and oils. It's like giving your beard a tropical vacation. I'm talking about a beach party for your facial hair.
A beach party for the beard. This company's got the best marketing ever.
Oh, but we're not done yet, folks. The Elegant Sasquatch Grooming Company also has beard washes that make shower time a majestic experience.
Showering with Sasquatch, that sounds like a reality show.
It does, but seriously, listeners, if you want to sophisticate your outer beast, head over to elegantsasquatchco.etsy.com and use the code SUPERSHOW at checkout for an exclusive discount of 20% off.
You can also find them on Facebook and Instagram. Check them out, like them, and while you're at it, tell them the Super Show sent you.
All right, so we also have the Elegant Sasquatch. Everybody, you've heard of it. You know, we do the ads every week. The Elegant Sasquatch for lovely bearded gentlemen like Jack here. If you know, instead of the egg in your beard smell, they've got all that good beard balm stuff and everything else. I don't know. I don't really have I don't have a good beard. You know, I don't have a man's beard. I've got like a small like an adolescent child's goatee or something.
Well,
What's it like being a man, you know?
I hate to shave. And then I grew the beard, and my wife was like, I like you better with the beard. You're not allowed to shave it off. And I was like, okay, that works for me. Yay.
Absolutely. I've always wanted like a good prominent beard. Like you've got a great prominent beard.
Well,
I just
thanks.
my hair comes in like patchy. Like I think I had like I think I have like scars where I like hit my chin and stuff and busted it open. It just doesn't grow well. So it's just like, I mean, I shave a lot, but I just don't get it like that, man. But
Yeah.
you know, it's good to have products like that. You know, my friend who owns the Elegant Sasquatch, he's always telling me he could probably help me grow a better beard and everything. But my wife honestly doesn't want it for me. So, you know, to each their own. I think it's a cool look. I think you're not a man unless you can grow a real beard.
Nah.
I'm no man. Come on. But you know, Jack, this is a portion of the show where I like to get weird with people. And you know, you told me that you're willing to get weird with me, so I mean, why not, right? let's
Sure.
let's talk about a few things. One question I always ask people, everybody's got a story. Some people tell me it's total horse hockey, but I do a little bit of paranormal investigation on the side. And so I'm very into ghosts and the paranormal, UFOs, all that stuff. Do you have any brushes with the paranormal or ghost? Have you ever encountered a ghost? I'd love to hear your stories.
I've never encountered a ghost, but at my grandma's house in the basement where the furnace was, I thought it was haunted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that it was not.
But you thought
It
it
was just,
was.
yeah, but I thought it was. So I did not like to go in there. And I so brainwashed myself that even as an adult, I had a hard time going back there. As far as like seeing ghosts or anything like that, I never have. But I have something that you might find interesting.
Aha.
My cousin's husband, my cousin Jenny, her husband Tom, was a police officer in one of the suburbs of Chicago, and he used to be on the A&E show Paranormal Cops.
Yes. So he
So,
witnessed some stuff. He was, you know what I mean? He's seen some things out there.
yeah, I've tried to get him on my podcast as a guest to talk about it, but with his job now, because he's a retired police officer, he travels a lot. So trying to get him to schedule is difficult. And when
Yeah.
he's home, I kind of feel like he kind of needs to, relax and do whatever.
Yeah, he probably doesn't want to deal with all that. Well, what do you feel about it? I mean, do you think it's a bunch of garbage? I've had some people tell me, we had Dr. Sanguinary on from the Creature feature not too long ago. And he told me that ghosts are complete garbage. They're not real. And I do respect that opinion. I actually like that opinion. Like, I'm not the type of person who I'm so into it. I refuse to listen to anybody else. I'm more
Right.
like my mind is so open. I'll listen to literally anything that anyone wants to say to me about it. I mean, what do you think about it? What do you think happens? Like, are there ghosts?
I tend to fall on the there are not ghosts side of things, which is
Yeah.
weird considering I just told you I thought my grandma's furnace room in her basement was haunted. But I tend to think that there isn't.
Yeah.
I'm more of a you're born, you live, you die, and that's kind of it type of a person.
Right.
Um, but you know what? If you leave it to other people, maybe you're right. I don't know. You could be.
There's only
Um,
one way to find out, right? And that's that's when it's time to check out. That's when we figure it out. I don't think it's a matter of right or wrong. It's just like religion, like people want to get into religion and talk about this and that. And I mean, I have my beliefs. I don't push them on people. They have their beliefs. I will listen to anybody. I mean, truly anyone,
yeah,
and I'll respect their opinion. I just think that it's just such a hard thing because, like, if you put, say, 100 people in a room and 80 of them say that they have encountered ghostly activity, I would
right.
find it so hard to believe that all of them are full of it. Like that's where I put myself.
Yeah,
And the fact that I've actually lived in a haunting where there's things that I truly cannot explain how they happened or why, it wasn't medication, it wasn't, it wasn't being intoxicated in any way. It wasn't being overtired. It was literally me being awake and having something happen to me that truly terrified me and truly left me wondering what it was. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
don't, for the listener, I won't rehash it because I've talked so much about it. But I'll just say, like, I mean, at the very least, I was grabbed by something, okay, that wasn't there, and grabbed on my ankle, pulled backwards. I'm a pretty big guy, and it would take some force to pull me backwards. And ever since that moment, I've always kind of wondered, like, what
yeah,
on earth could that have possibly been, right? Or not on
yeah.
earth. I don't know what it was.
Well, just remember the next time that happens to just do like in Scary Movie 2, where the clown drags him under the bed and then the guy turned the tables on him.
Yeah. Well, that, yeah, I should have thought about that as it was happening, but in all seriousness though, there are people who are truly terrified
Yeah,
by this stuff. And I don't know. Sometimes I wonder to myself, is it just haunted house effect? Do we just kind of talk ourselves into it? It's kind of like there's times when I investigate the paranormal and I'll get super on edge about things because of like the nature of what we're doing. And then like I won't even be able to like do the laundry at my house without feeling uneasy. But it's like on the normal day, like there's nothing going on. Like the house is completely silent, nothing.
Right.
But so it's like, is it that if you invite it into your life, it's going to happen types, or is it maybe just our minds do this type of stuff? Like we get ourselves talked into, well, the jury's still out for me. Like I'm kind of like the biggest, I keep telling him I'm the biggest boner killer when it comes to the paranormal groups that I'm with, because they get all excited about this stuff. And I'm the first person to shoot it down. And it's not that I don't believe,
Right.
but I want to look at it from, if we're really looking for true evidence, then you have to be the super skeptic all the time that this probably has an explanation, right?
Yeah. Get related. When I was a kid, actually until my early 30s, I would experience sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever looked into that or anything. It's really weird, and it's strange because people have like the same sort of, there's like four or five things that happen with that.
Right.
And it's unrelated people, and they'll all see sort of the same thing when you have sleep.
Well, tell me what you've had, because I had sleep paralysis bad for years. Tell me what you saw.
I had Fedora Hat Man with the static face.
Okay.
That would always stand at the end of my bed. That's the one I had. I didn't have like the sort of the monster that stood on you, or the creaky, crackly old lady.
Yeah.
I
would have visions of like it was almost like a dream state where I knew everything was in front of me. Like I was aware of my surroundings, but I knew that there was something in the room, right? And I knew, and I could see like some sort of almost some sort of a shadowy figure. And then it would just like terrify me the whole time. It would just be there. I would never really see much of it. I would just kind of see the figure of it, and I would know that it was there and holding me down. And then I would start to I mean, for me, I was always religiously superstitious and everything, from upbringing and whatnot. So I'd pray and everything, and it would go away every time. I would tell myself, I wouldn't convince myself, oh my gosh, it's the devil or anything like that. I would just say, I had a bad night terror or something like that, but I could never really understand the nature of it. So it is interesting that everybody kind of has same, but a little different. Like why would we have that?
Yeah. My mom was super evangelical. So in my mind, when I would have the sleep paralysis, I was being visited by demons.
Yeah.
Because of how I grew up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until as an adult, and that's one of the great things about the internet. If you're like my generation, there was a lot of things that happened that you thought was you, and then the internet happened, and you're like, oh, I'm not alone. This happened to other people.
Right.
And that's when I realized, oh, well, this is just this thing. It wasn't,
yeah,
it happens to everybody. It's just a medical thing that happens. But yeah, no, I would, because you couldn't move, and it'd take like everything that I had to like yell so my mom or dad would come in. So no, I understand. And that's probably the closest to like what I would call paranormal activity
yeah
that I've experienced. So.
I think a lot of it really is just us being in between REM sleep and just getting this, what I mean? Like I have a lot of night terrors within that moment. So to me, I don't think there's any paranormal element to the stuff that I'm having. Truly, the more it happens to me, it's just like it's all kind of corresponds at the same time for me. Is right when I finally fall asleep, and I get in between that and the REM sleep, and then I mean, and maybe there's some correlation to that. I don't know, but that's just how it's been for me. But it definitely is interesting. I don't know. The thing about sleep paralysis, though, is it's just so dang terrifying, right? Like, when you're going through it, I mean, you're really going through it. Like I said before, you physically feel like you're in that moment. Like I fell asleep on the couch before, and I've been so aware of my surroundings that I can literally almost see myself, as I am there, as if I'm out of body. Looking at myself, but then like something is terrifying me. It's like something is there next to me, and I can't scream, I can't do anything, and it won't go away, and it's really scary. But I just, a lot of people do want to chalk it up to demon, but especially like right now, we have all these ghost shows and everything, and they dramatize all of this demonic stuff. And I mean, people can believe what they want to believe. I believe there's some evil stuff out there, probably that we don't want to mess with. But I can't say for sure. I can say for certainty that on Ghost Adventures, for example, they're not getting possessed every time. I would think that if you were, it would be like such a point whatever percentage that of people actually getting that happening. It would be ridiculous, right? Do you ever watch Ghost Adventures?
I do not.
Yeah.
I do not. I have. I used to work a job that was overnight, and the guy that controlled the TV would watch it. So I would watch it then. But
or as I like to call it, guys screaming in the dark, like they're walking around in the dark and they're getting excited when something happens and kind of acting a fool.
On like a related show, did you ever watch Finding Bigfoot?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I actually kind of enjoyed that. I thought it was interesting, but my biggest complaint was trail cams are cheap.
Yeah.
Right? You could go to Academy and they'd go out there and we're setting up our 3 trail cams. And I'm like, you could literally set up like 40 of them.
And why wouldn't you, right? Exactly. They're cheap. Like why, especially if you're in a big group and you're all kind of fronting the bill. And if you have a TV show to boot, like, wouldn't you have like 400 or 600 of them everywhere?
Yeah, I just always thought that was just dumb because I'm like, well, that's why you're not getting anything. You don't have enough damn trail cams. Yeah. that's the easiest solution.
I talked not too long ago to a Bigfoot guy out of Pennsylvania named Glenn, and he was he did tell me some pretty terrifying stories. I really enjoyed talking to him. I always wanted a Bigfoot person on my show.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I don't understand is like they tell me, and this is not a knock on you, Glenn, but I'm just saying they in general, they say that Bigfoot is a highly intelligent, being, and they don't want to be photographed. I mean, so like who does? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not Bigfoot, but I don't necessarily want to be photographed either.
Right?
I
want there to be Bigfoot. That's the thing. I want there to be Bigfoot. That would be cool as shit.
Yeah. Did you see the footage in Colorado not too long ago that they had where it was like from a train? I didn't, but I'm gonna Google it when we're done recording. Oh, you have to. It's pretty crazy, but it's always Bigfoot at a distance. But this one looked pretty compelling. Like this could be a creature. Because you have to imagine the size from the distance of where they took it.
Right. Yeah.
I know when my father-in-law was in Alaska, they were on an Alaska, like the cruise tour and all that stuff. They took a train from here and there. He snapped a picture in this one spot, and in the distance, it looks like a really tall shadow of something, like, and they didn't take it on purpose. Like he was just snapping like nature photos and caught it. But then I put it in front of that Bigfoot guy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's nothing." And I'm like, how is this any more nothing than anything else? I'm like, what do you mean? But,
yeah. Bigfoot related. Did you know that Andre the Giant played Bigfoot in the $6 Million Man?
Yes, absolutely. I did. Do you watch wrestling at all? Are you into wrestling?
I did faithfully growing up. Ironically enough, the fedora hat man that visits you in sleep paralysis is version 1 Undertaker in terms of the clothes that he wore, at least for me. Now I was having that pre-Undertaker, but
yeah, but that's what it looked like, right? It had that hat, it had that kind of it's kind of like a slender figure. I mean, not slender man, but you know what I mean? Like it's not like a fat guy with a hat. It's like it's like kind of a slender guy with a fedora on, right?
Yeah, it's early Undertaker, but with a staticky face, at least for me anyway. But yeah.
Now the staticky face is interesting because I'm talking to Ed the Pagan. He tells me that could be like an egregor is what they call them, which can be like a some sort of like being that you can actually wish into existence. And he talks about the static face and all this stuff. Man, I talk to a lot of people, as I'm sure you do too, on your podcast, and it starts to like blend into my head, like all the things that people have said to me, and then I start regurgitating it as if as if I'm an expert in
If
the
it was
field
you.
of egregores. Like, what the hell is that?
Yeah. But no, anyway, I did watch wrestling, tying the
Yeah.
two things together. And one of my favorite things on TikTok is there are people. There's a TikTok that just does the promos of the Macho Man.
Mm-hmm.
That man knew how to deliver a promo.
I think he was the best in the business, man. He's easily my favorite just because of the time when I grew up watching was kind of the heyday of the Macho Man and all of that. You know what I mean? And it was just like to me, he was a man amongst men. You know what I mean? Like the Macho Man, when he showed up, he meant business. I mean, he pointed his finger at you, he yelled at you.
Yeah, he was the cream of the crop.
Yeah, the cream of the crop. Yeah, exactly. And he always had the best promos. I mean, Ric Flair has great promos. Don't get me wrong. Ric Flair has some sound bites that are incredible, but the Macho Man, he just had a delivery about him. It was his voice. It was everything.
Yeah. Oh, I love Macho Man. Macho Man. Let's see. No particular order. My favorite wrestlers all time: Macho Man, Mick Foley, Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yep.
Andre the Giant, obviously. You have to have Andre the Giant on there, especially if you're my age.
Yeah.
And I also loved Attitude Era Triple H.
Yeah, for sure. Triple H was the man. I mean, let's be honest. Like he carried the business for a long time. Like, don't get me wrong, Stone Cold did, right? Stone Cold changed the dynamic of WCW winning. The Undertaker is obviously a legend, but Triple H, man, I mean, he was a champion. Like Rick, as many times as Ric Flair was, he was the guy they pinned the belt on, and he carried the business. So yeah, for sure, I completely agree with all of those.
Yeah. Now Flair and Stone Cold, they're in my top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you said Mick Foley too. I just talked to a guy from Canada who said the same thing. He said, really, if you have to do a Mount Rushmore, definitely Mick Foley's up there in the Mount Rushmore because of what he gave to the business, and just he has been the ultimate guy. I mean, think about how many companies he was in, for example, and was just consistently great all the time.
Yeah, nobody gave their body for the sport of wrestling like Mick Foley did. The fact that the man isn't paralyzed is amazing, especially after the Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
To fall not once, two times in that match, which most people after the first one, they wouldn't have been coming back.
Right.
And, the Taker's like, I thought I killed him.
That's what's so crazy is he literally got thrown. They're like, okay, it's over with, and he climbs back up. He climbs up the cage again and gets thrown down again, gets knocked out cold. And then he proceeds that he wants him to throw him onto tacks. And I mean, like he had to have had a death wish at that time.
Yeah. And that's not even, truth be told, that's probably not even the craziest match that he was ever in.
Oh, no way. I'm
sure the one where he lost his ear in Japan was even crazier because there was fireworks in that one.
Yeah. Exactly. That wasn't even the half of it, man. Well, when we just lost Terry Funk too. Terry Funk was an animal just like that, man. And all these greats, we're gonna see all these greats that when we're gonna lose them over time here. And it sucks. I mean, that's just the nature of it. That's life, the cycle. But man, it's gonna be hard to see some of these guys go because they're such legends. It's just like the Macho Man. Like when the Macho Man died, is like that was probably one of the greatest men of all in my head. I don't know how he was, but one of the greatest men just died, is what I thought to myself.
Yeah. No. Yeah. When I was a kid, every Saturday morning they would show Mid-South Wrestling.
Yeah.
And so like I got to watch pre King Kong Bundy before he was in, WWF and the Von Erichs because they were all Mid-South. I mean, hell, when David Von Erich died, the Texas state legislature went into recess so they could go to his funeral.
Wow. That's wild. And I guess there's a new there's a new Von Erich movie coming out, right?
There is. Yeah,
that's going to be real fun to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be sad because there are not many families that have experienced more sort of tragedy of group of kids than they did.
Yeah, absolutely. But it looked like Zach Efron or whatever is in it, and he got super beefy for that one, like gained like 60 pounds of muscle or something. I'm sure he was on steroids. Like the dude was completely jacked. What it would be like to be an actor like that, like I will say this about actors. I mean, we want to kick them around and stuff, but it's like that method acting and everything that's really wild, where they'll lose like who was it? Was it in The Mechanic or whatever?
Yeah,
where
Christian Bale, dude, dropped down to like 90 pounds, and then he, went up to like 220 for Batman, and then he lost another weight for another one, and then
that has to be one of the craziest transformations
Batman.
of an actor. I mean, what a guy. Especially with Batman. Like, who was your favorite Batman if you had to choose out of all of them? That's a tough one to put somebody on the spot with.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go with Christian Bale 1A, Michael Keaton 1B. It's so close. I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have a hard
Val
time
Kilmer and not George Clooney.
George Clooney would be last.
He was a great Bruce Wayne. I will say this. If I were to think about Bruce Wayne being like a handsome, guy,
George
I
Clooney's
was like, he's perfect for it. But then playing Batman, though, it's like, oh, no, not that.
Yeah, see, I thought George Clooney was a better Bruce Wayne. I thought Val Kilmer was a better Batman. If you could somehow have combined the two of them,
yeah,
you would have probably had a pretty good.
I hated Affleck as Batman. I'm just gonna say it. I mean, I'm gonna come out on record and I'm gonna continue to say Ben Affleck's not my Batman. But for me, it has to be Michael Keaton because of the time when I was a kid. It was like that was like the biggest movie of my life as a kid. Like I can remember it to this day. I can remember the commercials with the the big old SR-71 looking Batmobile and all this stuff rolling up. I mean, I can remember it all. I mean, that's my Batman. Of course, Adam West was great, but for me, it's Michael Keaton.
Oh yeah, and not to overshare, but to this day, whenever Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman does all of those flips and then she stands up and goes, yeah, that still gets me.
it gets me too. Yeah, for sure. So man, let's talk about your while we have time, let's talk about your podcast a little bit. I mean, I want to dig into it a little bit more if we have a little bit of time to do so.
Sure. Well, it's Kenyatta and Jack Save the World. We have known each other since 5th grade. We grew up on Tinker Air Force Base, went to the elementary school on the base, and it is rare for people to go to elementary school and graduate high school with each other as a military brat.
Yeah, for sure.
People move every 2 years. So we've known each other since 5th grade, lost contact as adults, got back together as Facebook, and we were always sort of commenting on each other's stuff. And I used to have a solo podcast, and I had her on as a guest because I liked growing up on military bases. I liked the diversity of it. I just enjoyed it, but I'm a white dude. And so I wanted a different perspective. And Kenyatta's a black woman. So I wanted to know, did you have these same fond memories growing up on a military base that I had? Because, the perspective is just different. And so I had her on as a guest and we talked about it. And we had so much fun that we were like, we should just have a podcast together. And so we started the podcast, and my solo one is, I retired it, and it's just Kenyatta and I. And we do all sorts of stuff. We talk about current affairs. We do deep dives into history. We do pop culture, because in our mind, everything is it's all tied together.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Pop culture moves society, which leads to current affairs. And, the history leads to how we got to, where we are. And we just talk about whatever. We just did a 41st anniversary special of Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh, wow.
Which, if you're our age, Thriller was one of the hugest things when you were a kid.
Of course it was. Yeah.
And we did a review of The Last Dragon, which is the kung fu movie with Bruce Leroy from the 1980s.
Right.
And we've done but we do more serious stuff too. Like, there's a show coming out on Paramount Plus called Bass Reeves. I knew about Bass Reeves because I work at the State Museum for the state of Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And he's mentioned on there. Bass Reeves was a U.S. Marshal out of Arkansas, but his territory was the Oklahoma territory, and he's who the Lone Ranger was based off of.
Oh wow, I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah. But he was at the time one of the very few Black U.S. Marshals in the country. And he had something like a 100% rate of arresting people that he went to go and pick up that hid out in the Indian territories. And we did an episode on him because we're like, this is a dude people need to know about.
Yeah.
And of course, a year and a half later, he has his own TV show, TV show about him, which was cool. We're like, we were forerunners.
Have you checked out the show? Do you like the show?
I haven't watched it yet. I was gonna wait until I could kind of marathon it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, but from what I've seen, it looks really, really good. And it's done by the people that do Yellowstone, so it's probably going to have very high production values and good scripts and all of that. So
Absolutely. Well, what was it? 1887 or whatever that they did was an absolute masterpiece from start to finish. Like even if you don't like Westerns, like you can get down with this type of show. And I think it's probably going to be the same with that. I was excited when they showed that. I had no idea on the actual history of it though. Which I'm sad because I'm a big history buff. So I should probably know this stuff, but you can't know everything, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't, but try to learn something new every day. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like, we did a deep dive on why is Haiti Haiti. And if ever there was a country that was the Earth's toilet bowl, it has been Haiti. It from the outside, and even Haitians.
Yeah.
It's had a tough history, and then we just do current affairs and just all sorts of stuff. We have a good old time. We our first segment is our WTF moment of the week.
Right.
And fortunately, this is America, so we always have a what the fuck segment.
Yeah,
we have not been let down yet.
I can only imagine what the rest of the world thinks of us. Like I even talking to a guy from Canada, I was asking him like, what do you think about Americans? Like, have you been here? The thing I found the most shocking, and I don't know why, was that he had never really encountered maybe like only a couple Black people in his area of Canada, like his whole life. And then he came to America and he was under the assumption that we're like, 50 or 60% Black, like a Black population. Right. And I thought that to be so interesting. Like he just thought like, oh my gosh, I saw a bunch of Black people at Shoney's or something and everywhere. Yeah. But he didn't mean it in a racist way. He was just saying like, I had no idea that there literally are that many, African-American people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really interesting. But I always wonder what they think with all of our shootings and all of it. Do they just think we're a bunch of, fat people with guns killing each other all the time? That's what I assume they think. Yeah.
Yes. That's why when I travel, I'm a Canadian t-shirt. No,
Exactly. I'm with the Prime Minister on this one.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we have a heck of a time. We have guests on and sometimes, usually it's just the two of us, but
yeah,
we did a 50th anniversary of hip hop earlier this year, and I have another friend that's a real estate agent. We had her on. What's the process of buying a house? But, hey, that's so we cover everything. There is not a topic that we will not discuss.
I mean, it sounds like a great show. I mean, it sounds like for any of my listeners, if you're looking for somebody else, if you want to dump me and find a better podcast, I would assume you should probably go to these guys. But you're a fun guest, and I could tell instantly as soon as you came on, with the Pink Floyd background, we're talking. I could tell that we are going to mesh well together, and I really do. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I do so appreciate just being able to talk to you and getting back to the brass tacks of it, just being able to talk about the foundation that you guys started and everything and what you guys went through as a family. I'm glad to hear that your daughter is doing better. I think that, it probably is going to be a tough road, maybe the rest of her life, because it's a life-changing thing, but it sounds like she's, as she's making it her bitch, you know what I mean? And that's a good thing.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Talking about the foundation is something that's important to me. I
Yeah.
wish there was a way that I could discuss it without having to talk about, her accident. But
Yeah.
there just, at this point, there just really isn't
Yeah.
a way to do that because it's so new and we're still, waiting for our approval. And I just have to, talk about her accident. But, I appreciate you letting me come on. And
Of course.
she has a dark sense of humor.
Yeah.
And I would like to tell you the funniest thing that she did afterwards. Well, there are a couple of them.
Okay.
Her friends started messaging her, "Where are you? We haven't heard from you in 4 or 5 days." And so if you go online, you can find a picture of a Barbie doll that was put in a waffle iron and melted. And she's all, "I did this to myself. I'm in the ICU." And that was just like her response to people.
Oh no.
And it's like, that's dark.
That's very dark.
And then when she got home, she goes, "Dad, after what I've been through these past couple of weeks, I think I can finally understand what a man goes through when he has a cold." And I was just like, damn, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's what they really think of us. They think that we're big babies, like that sums it up perfect. Like,
Yeah.
if we complain to that level, then I guess we deserve all of the razzing that we get, don't we?
Yeah. My other favorite one is, if I ever have a friend that is going through a very bad breakup, my response is always going to be, "Yeah, I understand. I've been burned myself."
Yeah. Oh no.
But it helps her deal with it. So
Well, do you have anything in closing that you would like to promote?
Well, really the main thing, if you want to go listen to the podcast, Kenyatta and Jack Save the World, we're on most platforms. We would appreciate it. Both of us are strongly opinionated, which is fine. And then also, like I said, if you want to go to marsmissionfoundation.org and donate and help us get this thing off the ground, that would be amazing too. And the other thing, put those fire safety plans in place. Fire does not care if you're white, black, or rich, homeless, live in a mansion, Jay Leno, an NFL player. Fire doesn't care. It takes 1 second. That's all it took for my daughter, was literally 1 second.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go through that. So that's all I got. Otherwise, thanks for having me on. It was great. I had a fun time.
Awesome. I hope to have you back again sometime. I really do. And maybe we can talk more about music and different stuff. I'll definitely keep in touch with you, and hopefully I'll have you back here in the near future. Okay.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Anytime. I'll talk I'll Pink Floyd your ear off.
Well, that's what the world needs, a little bit more Pink Floyd in their life. If they're never going to fade away, but I just think that, I think it's something that we kind of need right now. So, hey, thank you so much for your,
thanks for having me.
For yourself as a guest, and I will talk to you hopefully soon. All right. Here is your host,